Hey everybody, welcome back to the Clutch Files at Reach Out Reptiles. My name is Garrett Hartle, and in this video we are going to talk about hashtag CL23019. These snakes are pretty crazy, there's a lot of different looks, and a few unexpected surprises, so stay tuned. So any of you guys that just enjoyed that new logo, I say new, we've had it for years now, but it's newer than our old logo. You have Stewart Design and Blake Stewart, my good buddy down there, to thank for that. This clutch is particularly exciting because the female is owned by Blake, and these babies were produced and hatched at his house about an hour away from here at our shop at Reach Out Reptiles, and he brought them up here for us to share. The male is one of ours, and so we're just kind of sharing the love. Now, the purpose of this breeding loan was to make a few specific combinations that Blake is in love with, but from my perspective, I really wanted to see some weird locality mixes going on. Let me explain to you a little bit about the mom and dad of these snakes so you can see what I'm talking about here. Now, the mom was actually produced by Chris McVicker. She was a dwarf and superdwarf cross phantom. The thing that makes her unique, though, is that the dwarf blood, rather than being Jampea, which I love, of course, is something a little bit more exotic, and that's the Solaire Island locality. So she's 50% Solaire Island, which is Superdwarf. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I mention scientific names, check this video out right here. She's also 25% Kalatoa. So what she's bringing together are the rich oranges and yellows of that Solaire locality influence with the heavy, bold blacks that you usually just don't see on a phantom. See, the phantom is kind of like halfway to being a blue-eyed leucistic animal, and so it doesn't really have any true black to speak of most of the time. This female, on the other hand, has some so rich dark browns that they almost look like the black pattern on that beautiful phantom color, amped up by all that Solaire influence. And what the Kalatoa brings to the table in the mom is the heavy, tight, extra dose. I mean, she's just extra, everything extra. Heavy dose of pattern that you can enjoy from head to tail on that snake. The father was actually produced here in another breeding loan between myself and Andrew Acevedo. See, Andrew got into the Phantom project really early, and he took it some very unique directions into the Superdwarf bloodlines. He didn't use Kalatoa, the really heavy, chaotic, tons of patterning. When he used his Superdwarf animals, he used Madu. Now, Madus are exceptionally rare in captivity, but what the Phantom Madu did was create very clean, very bright. They still have a high saddle count, if you will, but it's a very clean pattern on a tiny little Superdwarf locality. So the sire of this clutch was sired by one of Andrew's animals here at Reach Out Reptiles on a breeding loan we did between that and a TK line 75% Kalatoa Sunfire Tiger Anery. The fun thing was, doing that breeding, we accidentally found out that Andrew's Phantom Madu male was also a surprise head anery. We got a bunch of aneries in the clutch, including a Sunfire Phantom anery that I held back for myself because of how bright and clean and beautiful it was. I especially love how the Madu influence brings out these blue tones in the anerythristic background. So because the breeding that produced the sire of this clutch was 75% Madu, Superdwarf, to 75% Kalatoa, Superdwarf, the father of this clutch is actually still 75% Superdwarf, but it's 37.5 Kalatoa, 37.5 Madu, and I kind of picked him out for that unique Madu look that Andrew had going on over there. This is where it gets fun. Pulling the boldness of the Solaire locality into the cleanness of the Madu locality while maintaining a heavy saddle count because there's so much Kalatoa in there as well. I had no idea how these babies were gonna turn out. Now, of course, being a phantom to a Sunfire Phantom anery breeding, that means we were gonna get a lot of super phantoms, which are blue-eyed Lucies. And I was honestly hoping to avoid some of those just so that I could see the pattern on some of the other animals and, feast my eyes on that locality influence mixing. But here's what we got. The wild types in this clutch have a crazy steel blue anery look to them. Now they are 100% het anery. I suppose it's possible there could be a couple of aneries in there, but you know, here at Reach Out Reptiles, I would always rather under promise and over deliver. So if you buy this as a het anery and it ends up being a visual anery, good on you. What's more important to me is that it has that crazy bluish silver. It's kind of like a sky blue tone behind the grays of that background coming from the Madu, but the bold blacks and stark contrast from the dorsal part of the pattern, like inside of the saddles, to the side pattern that the Solaire locality provides. So now that we know what that looks like, let's take a look at the Phantom mutation being tossed on top of that wild locality blend. Now, like I said, Phantom is an incomplete dominant, and it's kind of like a half step to a patternless white, blue-eyed, leucistic animal. And it kind of looks like you would expect. It's like if you took a retic and washed out all of the looks that it has, about 50%, and twist the pattern up a little bit, that's what you're going to get. Now the Phantoms in this clutch are no exception to that, but they do still exhibit some super weird color tones. So in this particular Phantom, we can see the blues of that Madu trying to fight through the rusty orange colors of the Slayer and making all kinds of different wild transitions from cool to warm temperatures throughout the body of the snake. Makes for some really cool Phantoms. And then, of course, breeding Phantom to Phantom, you're also gonna get the Super Phantom. This is probably one of the more highly sought after snakes just because of how incredible it does look. So the Super Phantom makes an all white snake. They're very beautiful. And this particular Super Phantom seems to have kind of like two-tone white going on. There's like a matte white and a gloss white pixelated throughout the pattern. I don't know why it does that. It could be that the Sunfire mutation on top of the blue-eyed Lucy as hatchlings come out looking this way. We've made a couple from this particular male before, and he seems to throw this sort of stuff. They do turn solid white as adults, but it's pretty interesting to see on these little hatchlings. There's something about that leucism that actually twists and changes the structure of the eye, creating a weird blue eye around a red pupil inside. Is pretty cool to look at. But that's not the craziest thing that came out of this clutch. You see, every now and then something completely unexpected happens. Now you might have been thinking, Garrett, where is the missing baby? Did you get any Phantom Sunfires? Those are the two different morphs that are involved in this combo. And the answer is yes and no. Take a look at this guy. I mean, I don't know that I would be able to sell an animal like this. I think me and Blake are gonna have to fight over this one, honestly, because this guy is wild. You guys have to let us know in the comments section down below, what do you think we should name this little boy? So what happens here, a lot of times in the industry, we would call this paradoxing. I think a more appropriate scientific term for this would be chimerism, or that this animal is a chimera. That basically means that you have different sets of DNA in the same animal. A lot of times it can happen because there were two twins, in this case of different morphs, in the egg, and one absorbs the genetic code of the other, and parts of the body, even though it develops one normal, otherwise normal and healthy body, it actually has two different sets of DNA within the same animal. If we took tissue samples from a true chimera, and let's say we took the shed from this part of the pattern and that part of the pattern, it would actually genetically show up to be two distinct individuals in one snake. This actually happens in all kinds of species, humans as well. You can Google it, but it's kind of weird. So let's get back to the snake.
I'm Googling it right now. It's really pretty weird.
All right, so what we have going on is that parts of this snake are Sunfire, parts of them Sunfire Phantom, parts of them are Phantom, and parts of them look like they're trying to be Super Phantom because they're blended out even to a higher degree. If Phantom is like 50% reduction of color and pattern, this is like 75-80% on parts of the animal. And they kind of form little ringlets of different looks all throughout the animal. Where the phantom pattern should have browns and no true black, this animal does have true black in the dorsal pattern. And where the phantom and the sunfire together should be a really rich red, whereas a sunfire super phantom would be a completely washed out snake, this animal has those areas of like that deep reddish orange, as well as completely faded out little ringlets around the snake and sporadic parts down the animal's body. Now, because of the way that Superdwarfs, as they grow, continue to get brighter and kind of grow into their colors, I'm super excited to see how this thing turns out. Shoot, I didn't even think about it, but maybe this is like Chimera, Madhu, and Slayer. Wouldn't that be cool? This half of the snake is Madhu locality. This half of the snake is Slayer locality, instead of blending all together. I don't know what it would do, and I don't even know, honestly, if this is a true Chimera. If you guys have any insight onto what's going on here, I'd love to hear about that in the comment section below. Now, if you guys want to find out for yourselves what this little guy turns out to be as an adult, or any of the snakes from this clutch for that matter, make sure that you go on your favorite social media platform, doesn't matter which one it is, and you follow hashtag CL23019 so you can watch them grow throughout the rest of their lives. And as always, I want to expend a very special thanks to our Patreon members who, sorry everybody else, they've probably seen all this stuff already because they get so much cool behind the scenes access all the time. We would love to see you guys there as well. If you want to get in on this kind of stuff, just click the Patreon link below and subscribe right here to Reach Out Reptiles for more content like this so that you don't miss anything. That's all I have for you guys this week. We'll catch you next time.